Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top story is another group of Israeli hostages and Palestinian detainees set for release as the truce in Gaza nears its end. But there are hopes the pause in fighting could be extended with talks on a possible new deal underway in Qatar. Our other headlines, Ukraine's foreign minister tries to revitalise Western support, insisting his army can break the stalemate with Russia. And the Indian workers rescued from the collapsed tunnel tell the country's Prime Minister how they stayed positive, trapped underground. We begin in Gaza on the sixth and final day of the pause in fighting between Israel and the Palestinian armed group Hamas. Under the agreement, another group of Israeli hostages is expected to be released soon in exchange for Palestinian detainees. On Tuesday, 12 captives were released by Hamas and 30 Palestinians freed from Israeli prisons. All this as diplomatic efforts continue to try to prolong the truce. Well, Israel has received the list of hostages expected to be released by Hamas in the coming hours. Since this truce came into effect last Friday, a total of 81 captives have been released from Gaza. In return, Israel has released a total of 180 Palestinians from its jails, but at the same time, Israeli forces have arrested at least 133 Palestinians during raids in Jerusalem and the West Bank. As part of this agreement, more humanitarian aid has been allowed into the Palestinian enclave. At least 750 trucks have crossed the Rafah border into Gaza since Friday. But humanitarian groups say it's nowhere near enough, and talks are continuing to try and extend the truce.
We would like to see a permanent ceasefire, as everyone here lives under great pressure. In my family, we are plagued with worry every night for the possible bombing the next day. We are really grateful for the efforts of the international community to help extend the truce. We have had some respite over the past 2 days. We hope the international community will help push for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza so that we can go back to life as it was before the conflict. Otherwise, our lives will get harder and harder.
We have correspondents in both Gaza and Israel. In a moment, Sarah Coates in Israel. First, Akram Al-Satari in central Gaza. Akram, what's the latest you're hearing from the Palestinian side about extending this truce?
Well, according to different media sources, Hamas approves this possible 4 days of extension of that ceasefire. They expressed that through one of their leaders, and that has been circulated and trending news for the past few hours. Palestinians at large are welcoming those news and are hopeful that this ceasefire would be prolonged and that more relief, comfort and calm would be brought to their life. As was said in the report, they're haunted by the fact that this destruction might erupt sometime soon, the bombardment might erupt sometime soon, but the news that are coming from the different parts, including in Gaza and from Qatar, are indicative of the fact that this extension of the ceasefire is imminent.
And the pause in fighting has presumably allowed Gazans to assess damage from weeks of Israeli bombardment.
Yes, indeed. Gazans were returning. Gazans in the areas of East Khan Yunis, for example, the ones who had to move to West Khan Yunis were coming back to their areas in the east, and they're assessing the damage that has been caused to their areas. Some people in the Gaza North also, the ones who moved further into the Gaza North, are coming back to their neighborhoods now, assessing their houses. Some of the people who lost their homes and with theirs were still staying under the rubble were also trying to retrieve the bodies of their dear ones under the rubble. The statements that were coming from the different UN agencies and from the local civil defense and Ministry of Health about the number of cases and the number of killed people who are discovered under the rubble is massive, around 6,000 people. They are now working day and night for the sake of retrieving the bodies of the people, and the people who are coming back to those areas are discovering the extensive magnitude of the destruction that has been caused to their homes and to the infrastructure in their areas. And they're appalled, in the literal meaning of the word, by the massive destruction flooding that has been caused to the area that left almost 65% of the North Gaza and Gaza City areas and houses uninhabitable.
Sarah, what are you hearing on the Israeli side about the extension of this truce?
Hi, Jamie. Well, look, the Prime Minister's office is so far refusing to comment on these ongoing talks. What it is saying, though, is that it has received the list of these hostages expected to be released in the coming hours. That's the 6th batch of captives. It says there are 10 Israeli citizens on that list, 2 Russians. It's unclear at this hour if they also hold Israeli citizenship. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he is under intense pressure to restart this ground operation. But look, he's also under intense pressure to get the rest of these captives out. According to Israel, there are at least 160 people still being held in the Gaza Strip, and the families of these people are absolutely furious. They are continuing to rally right around the country, saying that the government simply is not doing enough. Now, we do understand at this hour that one senior official close to these mediation talks is saying that Israel is asking for the possibility of releasing adult males, also elderly men and fathers, along with these women and children. The family is also really pushing the war cabinet here to halt this ground operation while all of these people get out. And look, this is certainly something we are expecting also when the US Secretary of State touches down in the next few hours here in Tel Aviv.
What have the released hostages been saying about their time in captivity?
Look, Jamie, a lot of these hostages have been pretty quiet since they've been released from the Gaza Strip. A few of them, of course, though, have spoken up. One, a 75-year-old woman, spoke to Israeli media. She said that they were fed well initially, then things got worse. She said they slept on plastic chairs in a suffocating room, while the aunt of a 12-year-old French-Israeli hostage, she said that when this boy arrived in Gaza, he was beaten by everyone. Hamas fighters, she also said, forced these children to watch videos of these October 7 atrocities. While the father of that 9-year-old Irish-Israeli girl, Emily Hand, he says that they were forced to keep quiet in captivity, that now she only whispers and that she cries herself to sleep. But look, one 85-year-old hostage has actually just spoken out in the last few minutes to Israeli media also. Don't have much about what she said, but she said she didn't mince her words when she met the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, underground in the Strip. She said to him, "How are you not ashamed of yourself?" So, look, I'm sure we will hear more about the testimony of these hostages as they do come out of the Strip, but that is basically what we're hearing from them for now, Jamie.
Sarah, thank you. Sarah Coates, our correspondent in Israel, and thanks to Akram al-Satari in Gaza. Well, China's foreign minister is set to chair a meeting of the United Nations Security Council on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Wang Yi held talks with officials from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt and Palestinian authorities ahead of this session. China took over the rotating presidency of the Security Council this month. Beijing has called for de-escalation and for Israel and Palestine to pursue a two-state solution. Well, Wang Yi will be chairing that meeting at the United Nations within the next hour or so. And, of course, we'll bring you the latest developments live at 1500 GMT. Now the rest of the day's news, and Ukraine's foreign minister says his country will not back down against Russia, despite questions over international aid and progress on the battlefield. Dmytro Kuleba told a NATO summit that more defence alignment is needed to protect the security of both Europe and the alliance. The EU has so far delivered less than a third of the 1 million shells it promised Kyiv, while hardline Republicans in the United States have stalled a new support package. Western countries insist they remain committed and are not pressing Kyiv to negotiate with Moscow.
The fact that we have been able to push back the Russian forces from the north, in the east and in the south, and also inflicted heavy losses on the Russian invaders. These are big wins for Ukraine. All allies agree that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance, and we need now to discuss the path forward.
Let's talk to our correspondent Alex Cadier in Brussels. Alex, Ukraine's Dmytro Kuleba clearly wanted a response. Did he get it?
Yes, in a word, Jamie, he got a clear show of support from NATO allies, from Secretary-General Stoltenberg that you just heard from there. He had reminded us all of the commitments made recently by the Netherlands, by Germany, racking up to almost $10 billion of military support to Ukraine. But the reality, the elephant in the room, was that there is still over $100 billion worth of aid, both from the United States and the EU, being blocked by domestic politics, by the Republicans, as you mentioned, in one side, by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban here in the EU. So those will be monitored very closely, but there was a clear show of support, a clear commitment of support, and strong symbolism in that first NATO-Ukraine Council meeting at the foreign minister level. That was a format launched at the leaders meeting back in the summer in Vilnius, showing that cooperation, that working together will continue. But certainly Dmytro Kuleba saying, look, those involved in the production of weaponry, the weaponry in Europe and the United States that we need to hunker down, need to work harder, need to accelerate. And NATO officials are very clear, speaking to me. They say we are working on it. We do want to accelerate what is a very complicated supply chain to get more weaponry to Ukraine. But perhaps most significantly, Anthony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, also reiterating his country's support. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Some are questioning whether the United States and other NATO allies should continue to stand with Ukraine as we enter the second winter of Putin's brutality. But the answer here today at NATO is clear and it's unwavering. We must and we will continue to support Ukraine. Ensuring that Russia's war of aggression remains a strategic failure is as vital today as when the Kremlin launched that war almost 2 years ago.
Alex, can we say how the conflict in the Middle East is affecting international support for Ukraine, particularly in the United States?
Well, when it comes to the United States and NATO, it's fair to say that it has taken the attention away, and that is obviously currency when it comes to that Western support for Ukraine. That will be a concern for Kyiv. We've heard also in the last couple of weeks, particularly in the United States, some of those 155mm artillery shells, those crucial artillery shells for a war of attrition like we're seeing in Ukraine, have been rerouted from the United States. They were earmarked for Ukraine, and they were sent to Israel. So that was one example, but it's being made very clear to me by NATO officials, Western officials. They say, look, actually these conflicts are quite different. The kind of equipment that Israel would need from the United States is very different to the kind of equipment that Ukraine is asking for from the United States. What is true is that there are some domestic political issues to overcome. We've seen that with the European Union, with Hungary and others showing a bit more reluctance to provide weaponry and certainly funding to Ukraine, and those Republicans on Capitol Hill. So certainly on the equipment front, on the military equipment front, NATO officials are very clear. To quote Lloyd Austin, the US Secretary of Defense, last time he was here, he said the United States can walk and chew gum at the same time. That was the message from the European allies as well, but certainly Ukrainians are very concerned about that attention moving to the Middle East.
Alex, thank you for that. Our correspondent Alex Cadier in Brussels. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, it's the hot topic. Can the international community really limit global temperatures? The president of COP28 says he's optimistic.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans, grey rhinos, and unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
For China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us, excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Another group of Israeli hostages and Palestinian detainees set for release as the truce in Gaza nears its end. But there are hopes the pause in fighting could be extended, with talks on a possible new deal underway in Qatar. And Ukraine's foreign minister tries to revitalize Western support, insisting his army can break the stalemate with Russia. A deal is still within reach to keep hopes alive of the global temperature rise threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's the message from the president of COP28 Climate Summit, which begins in Dubai on Thursday. Delegates from nearly 200 countries will attend this conference, hosted by the UAE. The aim is to forge agreement on how to urgently reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Scientists say that 2023 is on course to be the hottest year on record, and new reports suggest that current climate pledges are not enough to avert the worst impacts of global warming. Well, at least 40% of Singapore's water demand can be met by recycled wastewater, and that's expected to rise to over half by the year 2060. But treating large quantities of wastewater can be costly and damaging to the environment. Now, one company thinks they have found a sustainable solution. Our correspondent Mira Liu reports.
Industrial wastewater is highly hazardous. Conventional treatment methods are energy-intensive and costly. Moreover, they rely heavily on chemicals, which further generates secondary waste. A Singapore startup has come up with a solution without using chemicals. Consuming small amounts of electricity, this cost-effective technology can remove up to 95% of contaminants in normal industrial wastewater.
That's where data centers are growing. Data centers, they use a lot of water, and they discharge a lot of water, and they use the tap water. So we did a pilot with one of the blue chip companies, and over 1 year, we showed them that when you utilize HydroLift system, you will be able to reduce your water discharges by nearly 70 to 80%, and also reduce your chemicals by nearly 80%.
HydroLeap is part of a large ecosystem of over 200 companies, 25 research centers, and multiple government agencies that has transformed Singapore from a water-stressed nation to one of the world's leading hydro hubs.
Built across the 350-meter Marina Channel to keep out seawater, prevent flooding, and increase freshwater reserves in the heart of the city, Marina Barrage is a symbol of Singapore's well-thought-out water policy. The 4 national taps, including local catchment, desalinated water, imported water, and new water, has significantly increased the city-state's water security. But climate change has resulted in unpredictable weather conditions that are once again straining its water resources.
Singapore is therefore taking a multi-pronged approach. The first is expanding its highly successful New Water project, which uses high-tech filters to recycle domestic wastewater. And second, investing in innovations that create a closed-loop water system to achieve sustainability.
There's a lot of forward thinking of how perhaps the effluent from one company could be the source water of another, and kind of how we best attach these things into a uniform water system that they can be recycling their own water for the quality they need.
Singapore hopes the 2 recycling taps, New Water and desalinated water, will meet 85% of its water demand by 2060. The National Water Agency, PUB, aims to achieve this goal in alignment with Singapore's larger net zero target of 2050. Miru Lu, CGTN, Singapore.
At least one person has been killed and 5 remain missing after a United States military aircraft crashed into the sea off Japan. The Japanese Coast Guard confirmed one man was pulled from the sea but later pronounced dead. It said wreckage that appeared to be from the V-22 Osprey jet was found, along with an overturned life raft. Witnesses reported the aircraft's engine appeared to be on fire before the crash. Uber says it's opening up its ride-hailing app to London's black cab drivers from next year in what it called a partnership. A spokesman said it hoped to sign up several hundred drivers, but a group that represents more than 10,000 black cab drivers said it had not been consulted on the Uber announcement. The group said it did not believe any of its drivers would be signing up. Australia has apologised to thousands of victims and survivors of a harmful morning sickness drug that caused birth defects, stillbirths and miscarriages. Thalidomide killed an estimated 80,000 children around the world before they were born, and 20,000 more were born with birth defects. The apology from the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, comes on the 62nd anniversary of the drug being withdrawn from sale in the country. Albanese said it's a full, unreserved and overdue apology.
This apology takes in one of the darkest chapters in Australia's medical history, when expectant mothers, through no fault of their own, were exposed to a drug with devastating effects that were realised far too late. To the survivors, we apologise for the pain thalidomide has inflicted on each and every one of you, each and every day.
Doctors say that 41 Indian workers rescued from the collapsed tunnel are doing well, but will require long-term support and monitoring for post-traumatic stress. The men were taken to hospital after spending 17 days underground. The tunnel was part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's $1.5 billion highway project to connect 4 pilgrimage sites. Modi spoke to one of the workers who told him that staying hopeful helped them through the ordeal.
Firstly, I want to congratulate you all on escaping unharmed, even after facing so much difficulties. It is very heartwarming for me. I can't even express it in words. If anything unfortunate had happened, it would have been difficult for me to handle the emotions.
We were 41 members, and all were from different states, but nothing like animosity was there between us. We were all like brothers. If anything happened to anyone, we stuck together to help him. There was no problem at all. The food came and we ate it together. After having food, I used to say, let's go for a walk, since our tunnel was 2.5 kilometers long.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday are 2 of the biggest shopping days of the year, but you might not have heard of Giving Tuesday, a global movement to inspire generosity around the world. Our correspondent Mark New reports.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday have come and gone, making way for a day that's all about spending in a different way. Giving Tuesday challenges people to donate to a worthy charitable cause.
At this one Kenyatta Community College food distribution center, 260 families are supplied with groceries every Tuesday. It's only been open an hour so far, and food stocks are running low.
We've actually seen the cost of living increase, which is making it more and more difficult for families to make ends meet. Families are losing their jobs, families are having family events, and it's just getting more and more difficult because food is increasing, gas is increasing, childcare is increasing, rent is increasing.
Kenyatta College's SparkPoint is teaming up with Second Harvest to offset food costs so families can just focus on paying other budgetary expenses. Leva says the donations made on Giving Tuesday are crucial for the food market's survival.
We're very familiar with groups that are seeking more funding so that they can provide money to programs like ours so we can expand our services. And so by providing funding for programs during Giving Tuesday, it helps support us, it helps support our students, families of our students.
So the community fridge is all filled up.
2 years ago, we met Chloe Thompson, who on Giving Tuesday was busy stocking a community fridge and sewing and filling care bags for the needy. It's all part of her charity, Chloe Cares, which has now gone on to install water pumps and bathroom facilities in Ghana and more.
Right now, we're raising funds to install a community center out there, which has always been one of my biggest dreams, is to have a community center. And that's been our biggest thing. You know, it's trying to involve the arts with the different youth out there.
Now just 16 years old, Chloe says Giving Tuesday goes beyond just financial donations. She's also founded Giving Tuesday Spark, a network of more than 1 million young people around the world, all figuring out ways to donate their time on Giving Tuesday.
Giving Tuesday has helped us a lot, especially when it comes to raising funds, when it comes to just spreading the word in general, because it's just such a global movement. You're able to reach so many more people throughout it, and especially on that specific day where it's just a day for giving. I feel as if youth are the next generation of just change makers. So getting them involved on Giving Tuesday and finding an outlet for them to be involved is really important as well. So I hope that this year does everyone so good on Giving Tuesday, and I'm super excited for it.
Mark New, CGTN, San Francisco.
The headlines again. Another group of Israeli hostages and Palestinian detainees set for release as the truce in Gaza nears its end. But there are hopes that the pause in fighting could be extended, with talks on a possible new deal underway in Qatar. And Ukraine's foreign minister tries to revitalize Western support, insisting his army can break the stalemate with Russia. That is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel, on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insights. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Hello and welcome to Europe's weather forecast. Starting off with atmospheric circulation, those isobars are moving eastward over the next 2 days, which will cause some wet weather conditions. So you can look at the wet weather forecast map. Snowfall could be expected across Central Europe into much of Scandinavia, all the way down to Western Russia by Thursday. At the same time, rainfall could be expected if you're living across Iberian Peninsula, much of France, parts of Italian Peninsula, and also across Black Sea. As we go into Friday, we could have very similar feelings. Also some heavy rain or torrential, even extremely torrential downpours could be expected in those dark blue shaded areas. You better take some precautionary measures. And now, speaking of maximum temperature, daily highs could go downward, especially if you're living across the north on Thursday and Friday. Notice daily highs below -10, and across the west, highs be around 5. Much warmer conditions could be expected if you're living across Iberian Peninsula all the way to parts of the Balkans, mid-teens to upper teens. For instance, you could have -2 for daily highs in Copenhagen, and light snow picking up in Stockholm, Helsinki, all the way to Moscow. Well, that's it for now. Stay tuned for more city forecast.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.